Chúng ta sẽ bắt đầu trong 15 giây nữa. Dr. Thăng, please proceed.
Vâng, chúng ta sẽ quay lại với lại cái buổi tham luận đoàn thứ tư, cũng là tham luận đoàn chót của chương trình hội luận về chủ đề Tây Nguyên, Thiên Chúa giáo ở vùng Tây Nguyên, thách đố và triển vọng. Chúng tôi xin giới thiệu với quý vị cái vị diễn giả đầu tiên là đại sứ lưu động cho tự do tôn giáo quốc tế của Hoa Kỳ là ông Bashar Hussein. Welcome to the concluding panel of the two-day symposium titled Vietnam, Ongoing Persecution of Montagnard Christians and the Courageous Fight for Religious Freedom. This symposium lays the foundation for our developing a 5-year multi-pronged strategy to vastly expand the safe space for Montagnard Christians to practice their faith. Yesterday's panels examined the Vietnamese government's history of persecution against Montagnard Christians, including Catholics, and the impacts on individual victims as well as entire communities. Today's panels explore strategies and practical approaches to promote religious freedom in the Central Highlands of Vietnam. It is my honor to introduce the U.S. Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom. Ambassador Hussein leads the State Department's efforts to monitor religious freedom abuses, persecution, and discrimination worldwide. He also oversees policies and programs to address these concerns and works to build diverse and dynamic partnerships with the broadest range of civil society, with equitable and meaningful inclusion of faith actors globally. Prior to joining the State Department, Ambassador Hussein served in different capacities in the Obama and then the Biden administrations. Before joining the executive branch of government, he worked on the House Judiciary Committee. Ambassador Hussein, we thank you for your participation and look forward to your insight on how the U.S. government can work with other governments, UN agencies, affected communities, and individual advocates to promote religious freedom in Vietnam, particularly for Montagnard, who have been severely persecuted because of their Christian faith and also because of their forebears siding with America during the Vietnam War. Ambassador Hussein, please.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to join you. I've been looking forward to this conversation. One of the first engagements that I had when I came on the job was to speak with our outgoing ambassador who's headed to Vietnam. At around the time I was confirmed, there was a number of U.S. ambassadors that were confirmed in December, and it's really been important for me to talk to them about the religious freedom situations that they'll be seeing when they head out to their countries. And Vietnam was one of the first countries that I engaged on, including issues impacting the Montagnard Christian community. So I'm really looking forward to the discussion. And I want to thank both people at SOS for inviting me for the webinar. I want to also thank Steve Korb and others in civil society for all the hard work that you've done on monitoring and reporting on and advocating for religious freedom in Vietnam and elsewhere around the world. Your efforts are really critical. They provide a voice for the people that don't have a voice for those who are silenced, a voice for those who are repressed. And I want you to know that the United States stands with you on the importance of freedom of religion or belief and advocating for the most vulnerable and persecuted people around the world. The President Biden, Secretary Blinken, and I are united in our commitment to protecting and advancing religious freedom for people everywhere. This goes to the heart, we believe, of what it means to be a human being, to be able to think freely, to be able to follow your heart, to be able to follow your conscience, to change beliefs, if our hearts and our minds lead us to change our beliefs, and to express those beliefs in public and also in private. And we believe that people are entitled to religious freedom no matter where they live, no matter what they believe in or what they don't believe. So we want to be very clear about that right from the beginning. I'm honored to speak to you all today about the state of religious freedom in Vietnam. My office follows Vietnam very closely. You may be familiar with the work that my predecessors, Ambassador Sam Brownback, did in Vietnam, as well as Rabbi Saperstein, who was heavily involved in work in Vietnam. And is my intention to continue that work, the outstanding work of my predecessors in this area and the work that our government has done in Vietnam. So I want to acknowledge that there has been some progress, that the government has been trying to take some steps towards progress in Vietnam. This includes expanding national level recognition of religious organizations and registering local churches, although of course there's more work to be done. In major cities, certain religious organizations are reporting fewer problems operating. The local authorities in many places have also started granting household registration to Hmong Christian communities who had lacked documentation for decades. And there's been years of advocacy from thoughtful, dedicated, and brave individuals, both in Vietnam and around the world, that has proven to result in some change. And I know that the changes have been slow, and I know that we want to see more, and we're going to continue to push on that. The work, of course, is not done. We continue to see religious freedom concerns in Vietnam, in large part because the government maintains significant control over religious practices in the stated, and they've couched it in terms of protecting national security and social unity. We all know, however, that protecting religious freedom and protecting human rights is a critical tool or a critical way of ensuring that we create safe and peaceful and stable society. So we're going to continue to work with the government of Vietnam to ensure that they do that. We've seen a number of areas of concern over the years, which includes the harassment of members of unregistered religious communities, including Unified Buddhist Church of Vietnam, Independent Hoa Hao Buddhists, Cao Dai adherents, Catholics, and Montagnard Christians, amongst others. These groups face intrusive government overreach simply for wishing to practice their faith freely without government interference. Montagnard Christians in particular face discrimination and targeting both as an ethnic as well as religious minority. And as you know better than any, freedom of religion or belief cannot exist without the interrelated freedoms of expression, peaceful assembly and association, as well as rule of law. Where freedom of religion or belief is imperiled, we often find that one or more other human rights are also threatened. For this reason, the Vietnamese government's claim that it only arrests people for political activities and never for religious activities rings hollow to us. And we want to make sure that we are continuing to communicate that concern to them and pushing for change on it. We stand in defense of religious freedom, not only, I should note, as an expression of our deepest values, but we also believe that, as I mentioned earlier, that it's a national security interest to protect international religious freedom, including in Vietnam. And that's because repression that stifles religious freedom undermines political stability as well as economic development. There's good data from Pew and others to demonstrate that point. And without freedom of religion or belief, people are not able to make their fullest contributions to their country's successes. So in order for our country to achieve its potential, so to speak, we believe that it's critical that they honor and respect the religious freedom of all of their people. And whenever a government tries to deny this human right of international religious freedom, oftentimes it ignites tension and it breeds division and instability within countries. We believe that the public or private expression of one's faith can often include the peaceful involvement of religious groups and their members in political life as a crucial part of one's beliefs or religious identity. Restricting one's right to peaceful political expression can directly and negatively impact one's religious freedom. This can include environmental and social activism. It can include speaking out against government policies online. It can include participating in peaceful demonstrations. This is just as true in Vietnam as it is everywhere else in the world. Unfortunately, many Montagnard Christians are not able to be as active as they want in exercising their right to participate in political life. But brave members of the community have stood up to government overreach for decades, including through their choices of whether or not to register their faith under a state-sanctioned umbrella group. As a result, local authorities in the Central Highlands continue to harass, arrest, detain, and threaten unregistered Montagnard Christians to renounce their faith. And that's simply unacceptable to us. We will continue to urge the government of Vietnam to put an end to this practice, and we will do everything we can to hold we'll continue to urge the government of Vietnam to hold these officials accountable. We are grateful to the courageous members of unregistered churches who risk their own safety and by extension, their family's safety to report the government's abuses and violations of their human rights to international monitoring bodies. As a result, Vietnamese authorities have arrested, beaten, and issued death threats, unfortunately, to some Montagnard Christians. When I stepped into my new role as ambassador earlier this year, I was extremely troubled to learn of reports from last summer when authorities in Dak Lak province conducted coordinated pre-dawn raids on unregistered house churches that resulted in the arrest of nearly 24 Montagnard Christians. Some reported that authorities had actually also beaten them, and many reported that authorities threatened victims for communicating these abuses to the international community, which is, of course, unacceptable. My colleague who runs the International Religious Freedom Office, Dan Nadell, raised this unacceptable incident with Vietnamese officials during last fall's U.S.-Vietnam Human Rights Dialogue. And our diplomats in the U.S. Embassy there continue to engage the Vietnamese government on this. We thank the members of the religious communities who, despite threats and despite danger, reported this crucial information to organizations like BPSOS, our embassy, and the international community. When brave actors step forward to draw attention to the injustice that they and others face, these human rights defenders are most vulnerable and are most at risk. They rely on the international community to act on their message and protect them from harm and reprisals. And I know that many in the Montagnard Christian community have faced reprisals from authorities for sharing information with the international community. But we are grateful, we're so grateful to receive many of these reports. Your partnership has been critical to help us understand what's happening on the ground, and we look forward to continue to work with you. The information definitely informs our policy, particularly when we put together the International Religious Freedom Report, which Congress requires us to put forward every year. So we'll include these stories and other facts in the IRF report, which is an invaluable tool for human rights defenders around the world and provides essential context for years and support for advocacy on international religious freedom issues. We draw on the report and information from civil society to publicly and privately raise cases of arrest, detentions, torture, property disputes, issues with religious materials, and prisoners of conscience when we engage with foreign governments, including with Vietnam. When it comes to prisoners of conscience in Vietnam, we continue to track numerous Montagnard Christians serving prison sentences for advocating for their faith, including Ra Lan Hip and Kasor Rook, both convicted of undermining state unity. That was a charge that the government is using to incarcerate these individuals. My office also tracked the release of former prisoners of conscience and those who have faced detention and harassment, including Pastor Adao and Pastor Aga. We will continue to raise those still detained and serving sentences for activities related to their faith. I hope to be able to travel to Vietnam as well during my time as the IRF ambassador, and to further engage on these issues directly inside of Vietnam with the government of Vietnam. I'm honored to be included among fellow panelists today who have bravely advocated for justice and for the ability for all to practice their faith peacefully. We stand as your partners in shining light on the plight of those repressed in Vietnam for their faith, and applaud all the work that you do to draw continued attention to these important issues. Thank you to C4 and to Dr. Tong Nguyen for giving me this opportunity to speak to you all and to be with you today. And more importantly, I want to thank you for all of your determined efforts and hard work in ensuring that the repressed and voiceless always have advocates sharing their stories. So thank you very much. And I really appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, Ambassador Hussein. And being mindful of your time, I would like to ask that you stay for 10 minutes for Q&A before inviting the next panel speaker. Let me get started first by saying that I congratulate you for having great staff like Dan Nadel, Mariah Mercer, Serena Duan, and others. They are very caring, extremely competent, and dedicated. You have a very good team of human rights officers in Vietnam. They're good friends of mine, and they are wonderful people. So that's great. Mike, you mentioned about urging the Vietnamese authorities. I would like to point out that there will be soon an opportunity to do that directly to the highest level in the leadership of Vietnam. By the end of this month, I expect that the Prime Minister of Vietnam will lead a high-level delegation coming to the U.S. for the U.S.-ASEAN summit through the invitation of President Biden. That would be a great occasion to raise concerns about religious freedom of conscience. Of the 80-some freedom of conscience, religious freedom of conscience, we count about 60 Montagnard already, about issues of violence going on, being used to target religious leaders and followers in Vietnam, especially in the Southern Highlands. So that would be a great occasion. So I appeal to you to use that occasion to raise the concern. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate very much the team that has been here. As you noted, it's terrific, and I feel very fortunate to be working with Dan and Mariah and Serena and others that you mentioned, as well as our embassy team, who we've already been engaged with. And of course, anytime we have the opportunity to raise human rights issues, critical international religious freedom issues with the leadership of the countries that we are engaging, including at the highest levels during their visits here in the United States, then we will advocate that we do so.
Thank you.